Stray dog mauls mother of three. North Carolina mother of three. Mauled to death by stray dog she was caring for while trying to protect her pet. A 38-year-old mother of three, identified as Barbara Brewington, was tragically mauled to death in her own yard in Bonnetsville, North Carolina, after attempting to stop a stray dog she had been caring for from attacking her smaller pet. And now we dive into the heart of this story right here on the AI podcast.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're going to be tackling, well, a really difficult topic. It's an important one, though.
It is. It's emotionally heavy, for sure.
We're looking at a collection of sources that detail two just tragic incidents. They happened in November of 2025, almost back-to-back, just 24 hours apart.
Two fatal dog attacks. And the thing that connects them, the reason we're doing this deep dive, is that both individuals were acting as caregivers. They were trying to protect the animals.
Exactly. So our mission here is really analytical. We want to look past the immediate heartbreak and unpack the specific risks involved.
The hidden risks.
Yeah, the hidden risks. What do these events, one involving a long-term stray, the other a professional pet sitter, what do they tell us about that line between human compassion and raw animal instinct?
And that's the key. We need to analyze the behavioral mechanics. It's not just about emotion. It's about understanding what went wrong so that you, listening, can get a better sense of how to assess risk.
Especially in situations where, you feel safe, where good intentions might actually blind you to the danger.
That false sense of security, it's a critical factor.
Okay, so let's start with the first case. This took place in Bonnetsville, North Carolina on November 23rd. It's the story of Barbara Brewington. She was 38 years old.
And by all accounts, just a wonderful person. The sources describe her as a devoted wife, a mother to 3 kids.
And a dental assistant. Her colleagues called her a ray of sunshine. But her story ends tragically at the hands of an animal she was trying to help.
Which is the most, I think, confounding part of this. The dog that attacked her was a stray, a mixed breed, but it wasn't a stranger. She had been taking care of this dog for 6 months.
6 months, that's a long time. That's long enough to build what you would think is trust, right? I mean...
You would absolutely think so.
Yeah.
Long enough to establish routines, comfort, a relationship.
But all of that just
Karen.
vanished in an instant. The trigger, according to Sampson County Sheriff Jimmy Thornton, was when her own small family dog got loose in the yard.
So you have the stray in the yard, and then suddenly this other smaller dog enters the space. And that's the pivot point.
The stray became, and I'm quoting here, overly aggressive. And Barbara Brewington did what I think a lot of people would do. She intervened.
She tried to separate them. She literally put her body between the 2 dogs to protect her own pet. This wasn't a random attack. It was a direct result of her intervention.
And here's the most devastating part of the story. She was successful.
It's a gut punch.
She sustained these horrific, life-threatening injuries, but she managed to get her little dog back inside the house to safety. She saved her pet, and then she collapsed.
She paid the ultimate price for that protective instinct. And it forces you to weigh that powerful human impulse to protect something you love against the animal's biological reaction.
In that moment, she wasn't its caretaker anymore.
No. She became an obstacle, an impediment to its instinctual drive.
Yeah.
And you see the community's response. Her sister started a GoFundMe that raised nearly $25,000. Tributes poured in. It just highlights the depth compassion she had, which makes the whole thing even harder to process.
It really does. Now, if this were just one isolated story, we'd be focusing purely on the risks of taking in strays. But the reason we're doing this deep dive is the timing. This was November 23rd.
1 day earlier.
1 day earlier, November 22nd, a second disturbingly similar tragedy happened, this time in Tyler, Texas.
And when you connect the two, the risk profile becomes much clearer. It's not just about strays.
Right. In Texas, the victim was Madison Hull. She was 23 years old, close to finishing college, and her connection to the animals was professional.
She was a pet sitter.
She was a pet sitter, and she was caring for 3 pit bulls. The attack happened when she went to bring the dogs inside after they had escaped.
And the escape is the analytical key here. This is so important.
Why is...
Because they weren't in a normal, controlled state. They just had the freedom, the chaos of being loose. Their adrenaline is pumping. They're in a state of what we call high arousal.
So she's not just trying to get 3 dogs to come inside. She's trying to contain 3 highly energized, powerful animals.
It's a massive stress multiplier. And the sources back this up. When the deputies from the Smith County Sheriff's Office got there, the dogs actually charged at one of the officers.
Wow.
So their aggressive, unstable state didn't just end after the attack on Madison. It continued.
So if we look at the common thread here, Barbara Brewington and Madison Hall, it's not just caregiving, it's that they both intervened during a crisis.
A high-risk intervention, exactly. Brewington steps into a dogfight. Hall tries to regain control of escaped, highly aroused animals.
So if 6 months of familiarity didn't protect Barbara and being a professional didn't protect Madison, what's the variable we're missing?
It's the shift from a relational state with the animal to an instinctual, almost chemical state. And that really brings us to the core safety lessons from these events.
Okay, let's unpack that. Let's talk about safety protocols, about predictability. It's easy to say the stray in North Carolina was unpredictable. But again, she had a 6-month history with that dog. So what does that tell us about trust dissolving?
Well, it tells us we have to make a really clear distinction between habit and instinct. The 6-month relationship Barbara built was based on habit, on routine. Feeding times, gentle interactions.
It created a sense of normalcy.
Precisely. But when her small dog ran into the yard, that didn't trigger a habit. It triggered a primal instinct. It's often called resource guarding or territorial guarding.
So the stray saw the yard as its territory and the small dog as a competitor.
An intruder. A threat to its resources. And when Barbara physically stepped in between them, she became the biggest, most immediate obstacle blocking that instinct. In that split second, her identity shifted. She wasn't caretaker anymore.
She was part of the threat.
She was part of the conflict. The dog's brain wasn't thinking, this is the person who feeds me. It was running an immediate instinctual threat assessment. And she was in the way. That's why familiarity can be such a poor defense against that kind of instinctual override.
That is fascinating and terrifying. So, that's the NC case. The speed of an instinctual trigger. Now let's apply that same kind of lens to the Texas case. The trigger there wasn't so much territory, but this high arousal you mentioned.
Yes, from the escape. The concept we need to understand here is something called threshold stacking.
Threshold stacking, okay.
Think of it like this. Every animal has a threshold for aggression. An escape floods their system with adrenaline, with cortisol. It's incredibly stimulating. That stimulation stacks up, and it dramatically lowers their threshold for a reactive or aggressive response.
Well, they're already on edge.
They're way past the edge. They're at the absolute peak of excitement and stress. Now, imagine trying to physically restrain an animal in that state.
It seems almost impossible.
It's incredibly dangerous. Any touch, any command, any attempt to put a leash on them can be perceived as a direct challenge to that highly charged emotional state. They literally stop processing information from their handler in the way they normally would.
They're just reacting.
They're running on pure chemical impulse. And remember, the sources said the dogs also charged the police officer who arrived later. That tells you it wasn't personal to Madison Hall. It was a general state of aggression toward anyone trying to exert control.
So we're seeing two clear takeaways from the sources here. First, familiarity, even long-term, is no match for a sudden territorial or resource guarding instinct.
Not at all.
And second, trying to intervene physically when an animal is in a state of high arousal, like after an escape, is it's courting disaster because their aggression threshold is basically at 0.
That's it, exactly. And for you listening, the critical thing to grasp is that good intentions, the compassion that drove both of these women, it doesn't change the biological reality of the situation.
These stories are such stark reminders that even if you have a deep history with an animal, putting yourself in the middle of a dogfight or trying to wrestle a highly excited animal back under control, you're introducing a level of risk that is just immense.
It forces us to think about safety protocols, even in places we feel the most comfortable, like our own backyards. That 6-month relationship was a source of comfort for Barbara Brewington, but maybe that comfort led her to underestimate the risk of stepping into that conflict.
And for Madison Hall, being a professional gives you skills, but it doesn't make you invincible. It can't negate the raw physics and chemistry of 3 powerful dogs in a state of crisis.
The lesson there is when that arousal level gets so high, your strategy has to change. It becomes about distance, about containment, not about direct physical intervention if you can avoid it.
Okay, so to just quickly recap what we've pulled from these sources today, we looked at the tragic death of Barbara Brewington in North Carolina, which showed us how quickly a familiar relationship can be overridden by a primal territorial instinct. And we put that in context with the loss of Madison Hall in Texas, which really highlighted the immense danger of intervening with animals when they're in that state of high arousal after, say, an escape.
And these cases, they've rightly sparked some very difficult but very necessary conversations in the animal handling world.
I'm sure.
If we tie this all together for you, the listener, it really raises a big question. Do we rely too much on the relationship we build with an animal and not enough on just acknowledging their fundamental biological risk? Especially when those instinctual triggers or that chemical arousal takes over.
And that really leads us to the final provocative thought we want to leave you with. If the core lesson here is that you can't truly predict when instinct will override learned behavior, then maybe the goal isn't prediction. Maybe it's preparedness.
Preparedness, not prediction. I like that.
So think about it. If you find yourself in that situation, a dogfight, and escaped a pet, and you choose to intervene, have you actually thought through the absolute worst-case scenario? Have you planned a way to retreat or to use a barrier, a trash can lid, a chair, anything, instead of just relying on a relationship that, in that one critical moment, might not even exist in the animal's mind?
It's about being prepared to deal with the animal you don't know, even if it's one you've lived with and loved for years.
Well, mother of three, this is a very sad news. Okay, one question for you. What safety precautions should people take when caring for stray or rescued dogs with unknown history? Don't forget to comment it. Thanks.